The night air over downtown Atlanta was heavy with rain, soft droplets whispering against broken pavement. A woman's trembling voice echoed through a narrow alley, weak but desperate. "Please, don't hurt me. I can't walk." She was on the ground, her white suit soaked and streaked with dirt, her ankle twisted at an awful angle. Her natural hair, once neatly pinned, clung to her tear-streaked face. Behind her, a pair of headlights flashed through the downpour, casting a tall shadow across the wall. The man approaching her moved slowly, his fists tight, his eyes dark with fury. She tried to crawl backward, but pain chained her to the ground. The rain fell harder. Her breathing came in shallow bursts. Fear filled every inch of the alley. Just then, another figure appeared at the corner. Tall, rugged, with a little girl asleep in his arms. His name was Marcus Grant. His work boots were soaked, his jacket dripping, his face tired from another long shift. The girl in his arms, Lily, stirred awake and blinked through the rain. "Daddy, is she gonna die?" she whispered. Marcus gently set her down and said quietly, "Stay here." He stepped forward, his voice steady, calm but strong. "Step away from her." The man towering over the woman froze. Lightning cracked overhead, thunder rolling through the sky. Something in Marcus's eyes, firm, unafraid, made the aggressor take a step back, then another, before vanishing into the shadows. The woman gasped for breath, staring at her rescuer. Her body trembled not just from pain, but from disbelief. Marcus knelt beside her, his voice low and gentle. "You're safe now. I got you." She wanted to speak, but her lips only quivered. She didn't know it yet, but that single moment, under the cold Atlanta rain, would change her life forever. Marcus Grant lived on the 4th floor of a worn apartment building in Atlanta's West End, where cracked walls whispered with stories of those barely getting by. At 32, his life had been divided into two halves, before and after his wife's death. 2 years earlier, cancer had taken her swiftly, leaving behind silence that never really went away. Since then, Marcus worked as a washing machine repairman, doing house calls that barely paid enough to keep food on the table. Most days he came home smelling of metal, soap, and exhaustion, but he didn't mind. As long as his 6-year-old daughter Lily had crayons, a warm meal, and a roof over her head, he could live with the ache in his chest and the unpaid bills on his counter. Once, he had worn a very different uniform. He used to be a firefighter and paramedic, fearless, trained to run into chaos. The scar that ran down his left arm was proof of it, a memory from the night he carried a child out of a burning building. He rarely spoke about it. Some memories were too heavy to share. That night, Marcus had promised Lily a hot dog from the corner stand if she behaved at the grocery store. They had cut through the alley to save time when they heard the voice, trembling, afraid, and out of breath. That was when their paths collided with Vanessa Cole. Her world was the complete opposite of his: high-rise offices, board meetings, and private drivers. But that night, she wasn't the powerful executive everyone knew. She was running barefoot through the rain, clutching a laptop like her life depended on it. Behind her was Julian Ward, her fiancé and business partner, a man whose charm had long turned to control. When she refused to sign over the company's assets, he snapped. She ran, and when she fell, the man she once trusted became her worst nightmare, until Marcus stepped in.
The rain had slowed to a light drizzle by the time Marcus reached his apartment building. Vanessa's body was cold, trembling from shock, but she refused to let go of the laptop she held tight to her chest. Marcus said nothing as he carried her up the dim stairway, the sound of his wet boots echoing against the cracked tiles. Lily followed close behind, her little hands gripping her stuffed rabbit. Inside the apartment, Marcus gently laid Vanessa on the couch and whispered, "You're safe here." Lily stepped closer, curious but calm, her bright eyes studying the stranger. Then, in a small voice, she asked, "Daddy, why is she crying like me when I miss Mommy?" The question hit hard. Marcus froze for a second, while Vanessa turned away, her eyes glistening with tears she couldn't hold back. He knelt beside his daughter and said softly, "She's had a hard day, honey. Sometimes grown-ups cry too." Lily nodded, hugging her rabbit as she tiptoed away toward her room, her tiny boots squeaking on the floor. Marcus fetched a clean towel and wrapped it gently around Vanessa's shoulders. He said quietly, "I'll make you some warm tea." She nodded, still shivering. As he moved to the small kitchen, Vanessa glanced around the apartment. The space was old, simple. Mismatched furniture, a small fridge covered with crayon drawings, and a faint smell of detergent in the air. Yet, it felt safe. She leaned back into the couch, wincing at the pain in her ankle. Her heart still raced from what had happened. She'd spent her life in glass offices and luxury hotels, always in control, always strong. But here, in this tiny apartment that hummed with warmth, something inside her cracked open. For the first time in years, she wasn't defending or pretending. She was just human, broken, scared, and seen. Sometime after midnight, Vanessa awoke to the faint sound of rain dripping against the window. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a hallway bulb. Her ankle still ached, but the swelling had eased a little. She pushed herself up slowly, realizing she was still on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her. The laptop lay beside her, untouched. For a long moment, she stared at the small apartment, the flickering light, the stack of repair tools by the door, and the faint hum of the city outside. Guilt pressed hard against her chest. She had invaded a stranger's home, disrupted his life, and brought danger to his doorstep. Quietly, she stood, limping toward the exit. She planned to leave without a trace, no note, no words, just disappear back into the chaos she came from. But as she reached for her shoes, she stopped. They weren't wet anymore. They had been carefully cleaned, stitched at the torn edges, and left neatly by the door. Beside them sat a folded towel and a small note that read, "Your foot's not healed yet. You can stay. It's okay." Vanessa stood frozen, the paper trembling in her hand. There were no demands, no pity, just quiet kindness. It broke something inside her. She sank slowly to the floor, staring at the shoes, patched but cared for, like someone had taken the time to fix what others would throw away. In her world, no one gave without expecting something in return. Every gesture came with a hidden deal, every kindness a price. But here, there was nothing but sincerity. The walls of this small home, though cracked and faded, held something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. For the first time since the rain began, Vanessa let herself cry. Not out of fear, but out of release. Morning came quietly, the city outside washed clean by the night rain. Vanessa sat at the small wooden table, her ankle propped up on a chair. The smell of coffee filled the air, strong, earthy, comforting. Marcus moved around the kitchen with an ease that felt almost rehearsed, pouring coffee into 2 chipped mugs. He didn't speak much, but his silence wasn't cold. It felt like space, the kind that gave her room to breathe. She watched him, noticing the grease stains on his shirt, the faint scar near his jaw, and the weariness in his eyes that spoke of years spent working hard for too little. When he finally sat across from her, he said only one thing. "You look like someone who hasn't had breakfast in days." She tried to smile but couldn't. It wasn't hunger that knotted her stomach, it was confusion. Why was he being kind? What did he gain? The world she came from didn't make room for kindness without motive, yet he seemed genuine.
As she ate the simple meal, eggs, toast, and black coffee, she found herself asking questions she never thought she'd care about. Who was he really? Why did he live alone in such a quiet place? She noticed the small photo on the wall, Marcus holding a little girl with bright braids and a smile that could light up a room. The sight softened her heart but raised 1,000 questions. Before she could ask, Marcus caught her gaze and said softly, "That's Lily, my daughter. She's all I've got left." The air between them shifted. Vanessa lowered a fork, unsure what to say. There was a weight in his voice, the kind that only came from loss. And for a fleeting moment, 2 broken worlds quietly recognized each other. Pain meeting pain in silence. Later that evening, Vanessa found herself sitting outside the small apartment, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. The neighborhood was quiet, children playing with worn-out basketballs, an old man humming near a corner store. the hum of life that somehow kept moving, no matter how heavy the days got. Marcus sat beside her, tightening a few bolts on his bike. His hands worked with precision, rough from years of repair work. Vanessa wanted to ask more about Lily, but she held back. The picture had said enough. The love, the pain, the loneliness. Instead, she asked something simple, something she hadn't asked anyone in years. Why did you help me? Marcus paused for a long time before answering. Because once, someone helped me when they didn't have to. His tone was steady, but his eyes drifted, lost somewhere far behind the moment. That answer lingered, sinking deep into her thoughts. For the next few days, Vanessa stayed. She helped where she could, folding laundry, washing dishes, even fixing a broken light switch after Marcus showed her how. Slowly, the air between them softened into something almost normal. She told him little about her life, skipping the parts about money, betrayal, and the man she once thought she'd marry. But at night, when Marcus wasn't looking, she would scroll through her phone, staring at the headlines about Julian Ward, the man who had ruined her name and reputation. He was everywhere now, smiling beside politicians, posing for cameras, untouchable. Rage and regret coiled inside her like smoke. She told herself she didn't care, that she'd moved on. But deep down, Vanessa knew the truth. She hadn't escaped that world. She was only hiding from it. And sooner or later, it would find her again. The next morning, the sound of laughter filled the small apartment, soft, high-pitched, innocent. Vanessa looked up from the kitchen counter to see a little girl rush through the doorway, her bright braids bouncing as she jumped into Marcus's arms. "Daddy," she shouted. Marcus smiled for the first time since Vanessa met him, a real smile that reached his tired eyes. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, lifting her easily. Vanessa realized this was Lily, the girl from the picture. Her presence changed everything. The air felt lighter, the walls warmer, the silence replaced by stories only children could tell. Lily turned to Vanessa curiously, tilting her head. "Who's that?" she asked. Marcus hesitated, then said, "A friend. She's staying with us for a bit."
Lily smiled shyly and waved before running to the table, talking non-stop about school and the drawing she made for her dad. Vanessa couldn't help but smile. It had been a long time since she'd seen something so pure. Throughout the day, Vanessa watched the bond between father and daughter. The way Marcus knelt to tie Lily's shoes, how he listened to every word she said, how carefully he made her lunch. It was love in its truest form. It reminded Vanessa of what she never had growing up: stability, gentleness, protection. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Marcus sat quietly by the window, the city lights painting soft shadows across his face. "Her mom left when she was 2, he said suddenly, not looking at Vanessa. "Couldn't handle the struggle. I've been doing this alone ever since." Vanessa didn't reply. She simply sat beside him, feeling the heaviness behind his words. They were 2 people who had both been left behind, 2 broken souls trying to build something normal out of the pieces. And for the first time, neither of them felt alone. Days turned into weeks, and what started as a temporary stay began to feel like something else entirely. Vanessa found herself waking early to help pack Lily's lunch, sharing quiet breakfasts with Marcus, and laughing at the little girl's endless stories. The apartment no longer felt like a stranger's home. It felt like shelter, like safety. But safety had never lasted long in Vanessa's life. One morning, as she stepped outside to take out the trash, she froze. Across the street, parked near a rusted lamppost, was a sleek black car. She recognized it instantly, the same kind used by Julian Ward's men. Her chest tightened, panic rushed through her veins. She quickly turned back inside, her heart pounding. Marcus noticed her pale face and asked what was wrong, but she brushed it off with a forced smile. Still, her hands trembled as she poured water into a glass. The ghosts she thought she'd escaped were circling again. That night, sleep refused to come. Vanessa lay awake, staring at the ceiling, as the sound of the rain returned, soft, steady, mocking. She thought about the choices that led her here, the deal she had made, the trust she had broken. Julian wasn't just an ex-fiancé. He was powerful, ruthless, and used to control. He wouldn't let her vanish so easily. At some point, Marcus walked into the room, noticing her eyes still open. "You can't fix what's behind you if you keep running from it," he said quietly. His words hit deeper than she expected. She wanted to believe him, to think there was still a way out, but she knew men like Julian didn't forget. She turned toward the window, where the reflection of city lights shimmered through the rain.
and whispered to herself, "It's only a matter of time." The following day began like any other, but something in the air felt different. Vanessa tried to keep busy, cleaning the small living room while Lily drew pictures on the floor. Marcus had gone to work earlier than usual, leaving the two of them alone. Around noon, a sharp knock echoed through the door. Vanessa froze. Her instinct screamed at her not to answer, but Lily jumped up, ready to open it. Vanessa rushed over, pulling her back gently. "Stay here," she whispered. The knocking grew louder, impatient, more forceful. Slowly, she peeked through the narrow gap in the curtain. A man stood outside, tall, suited, wearing dark glasses despite the cloudy sky. Her heart sank. It wasn't Marcus. It was one of Julian's men. She could never forget that face. The same man who once drove her to private meetings, now a shadow sent to track her down. She stepped back quietly, every nerve on fire.
When the knocking stopped, Vanessa waited, holding Lily close. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Minutes stretched into hours before Marcus finally returned. She told him everything: the car, the man, the fear. He listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening with every word. "If they're watching you, they'll find you again, and that means they'll find Lily too." The weight of his words cut through the air. Vanessa felt tears sting her eyes. "I'll leave," she whispered. "I won't let you get hurt because of me." But Marcus shook his head. "Running doesn't end it. You need to face him. End this before it destroys everything." Vanessa looked at him, realizing he was right. For the first time, someone wasn't running away from her mess. He was willing to stand beside her in it. And that terrified her even more. That night, the tension in the apartment felt heavy enough to choke the air. Vanessa sat by the window, her reflection faint against the glow of the city lights. Marcus stood near the door, pacing in silence. The distant hum of cars on the wet street only made the room feel quieter. She wanted to be brave, to act like she had control, but her mind kept replaying the image of the man in the suit. Julian Ward had found her once, and if he wanted to, he would find her again. Marcus broke the silence first. "Tell me everything, no half-truths this time." His voice wasn't angry, but it carried the weight of someone who deserved honesty. Vanessa hesitated, her hands trembling. Then she told him about Julian, the engagement, the scandal, and the betrayal that ruined her life. How she had uncovered things about his company, secret deals and illegal contracts. How instead of helping her, Julian framed her for it and made her disappear. When she finished, her voice cracked. "I lost everything," she said softly. "My name, my job, my freedom." Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she was done, he stepped closer, resting his hands on the windowsill. "So he's not just after you because of love gone wrong. He's protecting something bigger." Vanessa nodded. "I have proof," she whispered, glancing at her bag. "Documents, emails, everything. I was going to expose him." For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Marcus finally said, "Then that's what we'll do." Vanessa turned sharply, confused. "What?" "Expose him, but we'll do it smart, and we'll do it together." For the first time since running, she saw something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, the end of her story wouldn't be about running. Maybe it would be about fighting back. The next morning, Vanessa woke to find Marcus already up, his work table covered with papers, cables, and a small laptop that looked far too advanced for a mechanic. He had that focused look again, the kind that made everything else fade away. She watched him from the doorway, wondering how someone who lived so quietly could move with such precision. "I didn't know you could do all this," she said softly. He smiled faintly without looking up. "Before I fixed engines, I fixed systems. Worked in tech security years ago, left it behind when things got complicated." Vanessa stepped closer, curiosity replacing fear. Marcus had managed to access an encrypted folder from her old company email, the one Julian had locked after firing her. Inside were the files she'd risked everything to keep: transaction records, secret payments, and evidence of political bribery. It was all there, exactly as she'd remembered. "You were right," Marcus said, scrolling through the documents. "This man's dirty."
For hours, they worked side by side.
Vanessa explained the hidden codes and dates, while Marcus decrypted the rest. Each file revealed something darker, painting a picture of greed and corruption that reached far beyond Julian. By the time the sun began to set, they had gathered enough proof to ruin him, but also enough to put themselves in danger. Vanessa sat back, exhausted but determined. "If we leak this, he'll come after us harder," she said. Marcus nodded. "Then we do it the right way, quietly, through someone who can't be bought." Vanessa stared at him, realizing that this stranger, this man who had once found her broken and lost, was now her only ally. And deep inside, she knew that if she had to face Julian again, she wouldn't be facing him alone. Night had fallen over Atlanta, and the city pulsed with a strange kind of stillness. Marcus and Vanessa sat close together, the glow from the laptop lighting their faces as they finalized the files. The plan was risky but clear. Send everything to a journalist Marcus once knew from his tech days. Someone trusted, someone who couldn't be silenced. Vanessa's hands shook slightly as she uploaded the last folder. Every click felt like a countdown. Once those files were out, there would be no turning back. Marcus noticed her unease and reached across the table, resting his rough hand gently over hers. "It's okay," he said, his voice low but steady. "You've already survived worse than this." She nodded, forcing a small smile, but her eyes betrayed the storm inside her. She had been running for so long that standing still, even for the right reason, felt terrifying. When the files finished uploading, Marcus leaned back, exhaling deeply. "It's done. Now we wait." Vanessa looked out the window, where the city lights blurred in the rain. For a moment, it felt like freedom, fragile, unfamiliar, but real. She whispered, "I never thought I'd get this far." Marcus smiled faintly. "You did more than get this far. You fought back." Before either of them could say another word, the sound of a car door slammed outside. Then another. Marcus stood instantly, eyes narrowing. Vanessa moved to the window and saw two black SUVs parked across the street. Men stepped out, dressed in suits, moving with purpose. Her chest tightened. "They found us," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus reached for his phone. "Take Lily and stay behind me," he said firmly. The peace that had filled the apartment only moments ago shattered, replaced by the cold, sharp pulse of danger. The rain poured hard as headlights cut through the narrow street outside. Marcus moved quickly, locking the door and shutting off the lights. Lily, still half asleep, clung to Vanessa's arm, her tiny frame trembling. The knocks came fast and heavy this time. No patience, no warning. "Marcus Grant, open up," a voice demanded from outside. Vanessa's heart raced. She knew that voice. Julian Ward. The man who had once promised her forever now stood outside ready to destroy her completely. Marcus signaled for silence and motioned toward the back door. Vanessa grabbed Lily's coat, but before they could move, the front door burst open. Julian entered flanked by two men in dark suits. His smile was cold, practiced. "You really thought you could hide from me?" he said, his tone dripping with arrogance. Vanessa stood her ground, shielding Lily. "It's over, Julian," she said. "The truth is out." Julian laughed, stepping closer. "You think anyone will believe you?" he sneered. But before he could say another word, Marcus stepped forward. "They don't have to believe her," he said calmly. "They'll believe the evidence." Julian turned sharply, just as Marcus pressed a button on his phone. A faint beep followed, the signal confirming the files had gone live. Within seconds, Julian's expression shifted from rage to panic. "You don't know what you've done. You've ruined everything," he shouted. Marcus didn't flinch. "No," he said. "You did that yourself." Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Julian's men fled, leaving him standing in the doorway as flashing red and blue lights painted the walls. When it was finally over, Vanessa sank to the floor, tears mixing with rain on her face. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's done," he said softly. She looked at him, relief breaking through the fear. For the first time, she wasn't running anymore. She was free.
If you want a part 2, comment part 2 in the comments section and subscribe.